brother.
Yeah, man. Gary and I have, we've talked, we've laughed, we've cried. We didn't share a cell together. That's good.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. I would have been the big spoon. I love Gary, I really do. Gary's a brother. If stuff ever went down, and I mean stuff ever went down, I'd want to be on his team, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm thankful for him. I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for Collin County. I'm thankful for you guys hosting this event. Sorry that we had to delay it from a couple of weeks ago, but it's always a pleasure to be amongst familiar faces and meet new friends as well. Thank you for the prayer. I mean, I tell you what, I think that's one of the things that we come into meetings like this and we say the pledge. We pledge to the flag. We pledge to the Texas flag. We sing the national anthem, but one of the things that we just do and we kind of brush on past it sometimes is that prayer. And I'll tell you, we are in a situation both as a state and as a nation and as individuals and as families where we need prayer more than ever. And people always ask me my story, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a minute, but I always tell people, I said, if you want to understand my success and you want to know the things that I've been through, the only way I can tell you is if I use the vocabulary of the divine. Because God's hand in my life and His providence in my life has been the thing that I have been most, I'll just put it this way, He's been most merciful to me, to a guy who probably deserved all of His judgment. And I'm so thankful for that. And not the least of which graces He's given me is the opportunity for the last 20 years to be a resident in this great state of Texas. Now, a lot of people like to give me a hard time because I grew up in the state of Georgia. I did. I got out of Georgia a while back. I went to the University of Georgia. I had to leave and get out of the family business of meth. It was... country boy, redneck, proud to say it. I'm so country, I got a cousin that got arrested at a cockfight for selling chicken salad sandwiches because she didn't have a food permit. And just a country boy, and I grew up down in the woods. I was actually conceived in Dallas. Don't ask me about how I know these details, but I do. I jokingly say my parents did a horrible thing in a horrible place, but I was conceived, and I believe life begins at conception, so then based on that, I'm a Texan. How about that? Life in the womb went downhill quickly for me. My parents, my father was an engineer. They moved him all over the country. My father accepted a job, a project in New York City, so I was in New Jersey in my mother's womb when she went into labor with me, and that's where I was born. Don't hold that against me, okay? You had no choice in the matter. A lot of people like to yell, "Get a rope," or something like that, and that's okay. 4 months old, we migrated to my mother's home state of Georgia where I grew up. And I'll tell you, 20 years ago, I came out here on a work trip. And I was in Fort Worth. And for a boy who grew up down in the woods, a hyperactive ADD kid that used to have to stare straight up in the sky just to see some blue and some clouds because the pine trees were so tall, I suddenly felt like I'd found a place in Texas where not only I could see the sky, but I could breathe. And I said, this is the place where I want to live. And 6 months later, my truck was loaded up and I was moving out here. Now, I haven't looked back. And to me, this is the center of the universe. Not only do we live in the greatest country in the world, and I know that, not because of statistics or anything, I just know that we got tens of thousands of people lined up at the southern border trying to get in here. And we can't get a single celebrity to leave. They threaten, but they never go. But the state of Texas is something special. And it is the center of the universe. And I'll go one step further. Not only does so goes Texas, so goes the nation, but I truly believe so goes Texas, so goes the world. So goes the global economy. So goes the free world, certainly. We are the last bastion holding the flag of freedom. We're the last bastion holding the flag of the First Amendment and the Second Amendment. And folks who walk with what I like to call a little bit of humble arrogance. We just kind of hold our heads up a little bit higher out here. And the thing that I love about Texas is you can't teach it. You either get it or you don't. Texas is not taught, it is caught. It's contagious. And there's people who come here all the time. They don't get it. You remember when you were a kid, you went into the mall and you had those squiggly pictures at the kiosk there? And you stared at them and you had to kind of go cross-eyed and look fuzzy-eyed at the thing to see a pirate ship and a shark in the water underneath it. You either saw it or you didn't. Remember those? But once you saw it once, you saw it forever. You just knew how to look at it. To me, that's Texas. And I love that about this place. I love the fact that someone asked me today on the radio, who was from New York City, said we would kill to have Greg Abbott as our governor. And I said, I bet you would. Because damn. But here's the issue. I told him, I said, you've gotten so used to having huge swaths of liberty taken away from you that down here you recognize us having our liberties being chipped away a little bit at a time, that you're willing to trade it. And I don't care what amount of liberty you're taking from somebody, it's too much. And freedom isn't something we play with. Liberty is a big deal. And this is a big, heavy thing, but it's in my way. I'm going to stand here and I want to talk to you. Liberty is a big deal. Things are going on in this nation. Things are going on in our state. Things are going on in our communities. Things are going on in our world right now. Revolutions have been fought for far less. And listen, I'm one of those guys, I don't like being told what to do, and I don't like being told I can't do something. And we're experiencing a whole lot of both right now in our worlds. And I don't like those things. Now, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Chad Prather. I'm what they call an internet sensation. That's just a 21st century way of saying I'm unemployed but popular. I had no idea a few years ago when I put my camera phone on the dashboard of my truck sitting in traffic that millions of people were going to start watching my daily musings and pontifications. Thank you. To me, that was my therapy. And I just started talking about whatever I was thinking about that day. And for some reason, the Lord decided to bless that and give me an audience. And I swore back then, this was 2015, early 2015, I was doing television and radio at the time. These videos on social media started going viral, which was weird for me. My mother actually called me on the phone, and she said, I'm concerned. I said, about what? She said, I was at church on Sunday, and somebody walked up and said, have you heard about Chad? And she said, no, what's wrong? And they said, he's gone viral. And she said, are you okay? I said, Mom, they're talking about Facebook and Twitter. She said, you're too old to be talking about your Twitter. Things went viral, and I said at the time, I said, I'm never going to get into political humor. That lasted 6 months. I'll be honest with you, that's when I didn't understand. Like, I didn't understand. Many of you, if you'll be honest, you'll know this is true. I didn't understand the phenomena which was Donald Trump. Didn't make sense to me. I was a Ted Cruz guy. I thought, you know, here's the smartest guy in the room. I like this guy. He makes sense to me. It's logical. But I was quickly won over, but not before I did a video on the side of the highway on I-20 somewhere around Tyler, where I was just thinking about the primaries, and I pulled over, and it was Hillary Clinton, and there was Donald Trump, and all these others that were running, and I made a comment in the video. I said, it's almost like trying to figure out which venereal disease you're most okay living with for the next 4 to 8 years. And I walked into the voting booth that November, and there was 2 boxes. One said Hillary Clinton, the other one said not Hillary Clinton. And I went with that one. And thank God we wound up with Donald Trump. And I am thankful for that. The reason I'm thankful for it is because Donald Trump changed the face of politics forever. And what happened was a guy who was, although having money and name recognition, here was a billionaire real estate mogul playboy from New York City who made his money in hotels and casinos and various other things such as reality television shows, a guy that everybody wrote off, and suddenly he came in and changed the game because he didn't care. He didn't care what you thought about him. He might have not been the smartest guy in the room, contrary to what you think, but he was bold and he was brash and he was a counterpuncher. You hit him, he hit you back. And we fell in love with that. Here was a guy that middle America, blue collar, the guys in the garage, the guys digging ditches, the guys working the pipeline, the moms at home, the folks that were just normal, everyday Americans like you and me fell in love with this guy, and we said, that's our man. And it changed the game. Started me thinking. Because about that time when I started doing political humor, I also swore, I'll never run for office. But something happened last year. Something happened last year that we're still trying to figure out. We're not allowed to talk about it in public circles in many places. We'll get deplatformed on social media. They'll make sure that you can't upload videos on YouTube. People will get demonetized. Your audience will be stolen. You can't go out and speak about these things because how dare you say anything against Fauci and his coronavirus. I don't know if you've had coronavirus. Good chance you have. Don't raise your hand. They may put you in jail. I always encourage people, look to your left, look to your right, spit in each other's mouth, and let's get this thing over with. Let's just build up a little herd immunity right here. My gosh, we're people who have a cell phone and a tablet. We take this thing in the bathroom with us every time we go. And then later on, we take a call and put it up against our face. And you're worried about some Wuhan flu from China with a 99% recovery rate. So something happened last year, and the world went crazy. We were subjugated to fear. We all embraced a new religion. And I say all of us, not all of us did. Some of us could see through the smoke and mirrors. We embraced a new religion. The religion is called what I call safetyism. Because apparently we got a lot to live for. We just celebrated, and I say celebrate on purpose. We just celebrated and honored and remembered Memorial Day. Because we got men and women who were bold enough to put on a uniform with the willingness to serve, sacrifice, and give their lives for this country and for your liberty. That's why I don't allow that to just get chipped away. These men and women that did that and gave their lives sacrificially. You have these folks out here who stormed beaches and who... I don't have to go into the dramatics of the whole thing, and I don't want to sound jingoistic here, but let me tell you something. And now we got people out here who are worried about catching the flu, catching a virus, dying from that. And we're willing to give up our liberties. And we're going to isolate ourselves, and we're going to put ourselves under certain mandates that are government regulated and determined and dictatorially given to us. And last July, after we had been shut down and mandated here in the state of Texas, things had begun to ease up a little bit. I was in South Dakota getting ready for Donald Trump to give a speech at Mount Rushmore on the 3rd of July. On the 2nd of July, I was sitting there with Donald Trump Jr., drinking a glass of wine. My notifications go off. It's a news story that says Governor Greg Abbott has now instituted yet another mask mandate in the state of Texas. And I don't know if it's because I was sitting with a Trump or I'd had an extra glass of wine, but I got ticked off. And I jumped on Twitter and I said, I'm running for governor of Texas in 2022. Now, I went to bed having no idea what I had just awakened in the cyber sphere of the Ethernet and the interwebs. But I guarantee you when I woke up the next day, it was quite interesting. And I thought, no, this is right. Because it's time for people. I might not have $1 billion. I might not be a real estate mogul. I might not be from, well, technically sort of kind of from New York, I guess you could say. Semi-playboy. I don't know. I'm no Trump. But I said, you know what? No, everyday people who care need to run. They need to get involved. Because if I had my way, serving your community, serving your municipality, serving your state, your country, it almost ought to be like jury duty. It's just your time to serve. But see, we've gotten away from that because now we don't have term limits. We have career politicians, which is a weird phenomenon that I truly believe our founding fathers would roll over in their grave over. We've got folks that go in there. I don't know how you can make as much. I, honest to God, don't understand how you make as much money as some of these people do. I don't with these things. And they stay in forever. We got a guy in the White House right now who's been in Washington, D.C. for 50 years.
How about Pelosi?
Nancy Pelosi. Speaker Pelosi. I pray for the president. I want to have a talk with Nancy's plastic surgeon. I really do. How do you have 90-degree eyebrows? 90, like a right angle. She's so pumped full of styrofoam and stuff that, I mean, she gets on the Sunday morning news shows talking to George Stephanopoulos. And the mask just slips off of her face. She can't even feel it. This is so Botox right here. It's just, there's nothing here. Just, if she's just talking about it, Sunday morning. I'd say more. You have to come to my show in Arlington tomorrow night if you want to do that. Nancy's one of my least favorite persons. Puddinhead Joe Biden is another. Did you see him eating ice cream the other day, Mr. President, the media makes me sick. Mr. President, what flavor are you eating? Chocolate syrup. First guy on the planet ever able to eat ice cream and not get a brain freeze. I don't like them. But I thought, you know what? It's time that the average person speaks out and fights back. People say, is this a gimmick? I don't play when it comes to Texas. There's no joke to me. People say, you're doing it for publicity. I promise you, I don't need this kind of attention. God's blessed me in a big way. And, it's beautiful. The life he's given me. I've hit bottom many, many times. I can relate to that. I've got a good friend in Nashville, Tennessee. He told me one day, he said, when you hit rock bottom again, look around. You'll find my name scribbled on the wall 3 or 4 times. And he's not wrong. I've been there. Gary's been there. He knows what's up. But man, God's blessed me, and thank God for his hand of mercy and divine grace. But I'll tell you, I don't need that kind of attention. What I do need is for Texas to be Texas again. Because Texas is not the Texas most Texans think it is anymore. We've embraced that chipping away of liberty to the point that we've lost our identity. Identity is an important thing. Knowing who you are as an individual, as a household, as a community, as a state, it's all the same. If you don't have identity, if you don't truly know who you are, you can never go to your destiny. You'll never embrace the future that's been designed for you. That's true as an individual, it's true as a state. I believe that God's hand has rested on this state and blessed it in many, many ways. That's why we say, God bless Texas. And I believe that when you know your identity and you know who you are and you know where you're going, then you leave a legacy. And legacy is important because without legacy, You don't write history. Now, we could talk about William Travis, we can talk about Stephen Austin, we can talk about Sam Houston, we can talk about Davy Crockett, we can talk about Jim Bowie, we can talk about these characters from history, we can talk about David Burnett, we can talk about so many different ones, and I love all the stories because we forget that these were humans that left a legacy. You're still writing history in Texas. But if we don't know who we are, we're writing the wrong legacy. So I want us to get back to a point where we know who we are. Historically, we are a conservative state. We're a people who know how to govern ourselves. Now that's important, especially when mandates are being handed down and we're being treated like children. Your businesses are being shut down. You're being masked up, quarantined, isolated. People are losing not only their families, they're losing their lives. Suicide rates are up, anxiety rates are up, depression medicine is being prescribed like never before because people don't know who they are anymore. People are depressed, they're stressed out. Businesses are being shut down, restaurants, bars, venues being shuttered. People are having to change careers. Now we're in a situation where Joe Biden's been giving you so many stimulus checks that you go to a restaurant, you can't get waited on, nobody wants to go to work. They're making more money sitting at home than they are being employed. And I don't want to be petty, but yeah, I do. We have a governor who watches the news apparently and sees that Ron DeSantis over in Florida Ron, God bless him, just doesn't care. And I love that. He says something, and he does it. And dear governor, 5 days later, after putting his finger into the wind, says the same thing. The only difference is he doesn't do it. So today he just said, we're going to arrest everybody who comes across the border. Boy, that would have been handy a couple of months ago. What were you waiting on? What were you waiting on? You know, Gary, I've talked to Gary. We've talked about the border issue. I've met with many current and former Border Patrol agents and ICE agents. We've talked about it. It's up to us. The Biden administration is going to do nothing about the border. I mean, Kamala Harris is the quote-unquote czar of immigration. She hasn't been to the border. It's a bad optic. Doesn't look good. At what point in time are we as Texans going to not only finish a wall where the materials are there, we build a wall, Sarah, can I just be... Sarah Gonzalez, Blaze TV. I always look to Sarah, look at Allison. She's in the back. Allison's always, her official thing is, this is not an official statement. I said the other day, I said, you know what, if Texans want, we'll build our own wall. We've got the right to do that. We'll build our own wall. I got a little libertarian in me, but the libertarians of Texas jumped on me and said,
Yeah, right.
What about private property? I said, well, we'll ask them if we can build on it. They said, you mean theft? I said, no, we just buy it from them. What if they don't want to sell? They don't get a wall. Common sense is a weird thing, right? They're going to be a bottleneck in your backyard, though. You see how that works? We don't need a bunch of legislators down there in Austin, Texas, pontificating on how to keep people out of here. It's real simple. You detect, you deter, you detain, you deport, and you defend if necessary. Defend? Oh, God help us. We have to defend something. There is is no complex problem that doesn't require a non-politically correct solution. It ain't about political correctness, folks. We are being literally invaded. The Biden administration is flying illegals to states like Tennessee just this past week. Why? Because they can't walk back to the border. Why send them to a red state like Tennessee? I think you could put two and two together. We pressed the administration to make the cartels an international terrorist organization. Why? Well, because then that kid up there in Ohio that wants to join this cartel-sponsored gang is suddenly not so appealing anymore, because now that's life in prison when he gets arrested. It's a deterrent. And then you take every National Guardsman and woman and you leave just enough in Washington, D.C. to push some papers around, and you send them to our southern border with a big hell no. And you take the reins off of our Border Patrol and ICE agents and let them do their jobs. Now, I understand you're like, well, these are federal issues. Yeah, but we're Texas. And we got a little bit of pull around here. But the problem is we have played pussyfoot for too long by being nice to the federal government when the results of everything that's happening is affecting our state. I don't want to be dictated to by Washington, D.C. and its 2.5 million unelected bureaucrats sticking their greedy fingers in my business. I don't want that. We don't deserve that. I don't want to be out-Texased. South Dakota did it. They out-Texased us. Florida's doing it. Out-Texased us. South Dakota doesn't have its own toast. No waffle irons in the shape of Florida. This is Texas. Now I'm being tongue-in-cheek and I'm being a little silly, but you know exactly what I mean. People come here from all over the world. They don't care if they came to America. They want to know, did we come to Texas? Because Texas has a legacy. It has a history. We've been our own republic. We deserve the right to vote on our own legislation. There's a lot of people who say, well, what would you do about this? Let the people vote on it. Our representatives in this 87th legislative session, they haven't represented you. Why is the 1927 constitutional carry bill still sitting on the governor's desk? Why? Let the people vote on these things. What about election integrity? Why? Call the special session, absolutely, but don't let this stuff continue to happen. What about allowing these biological males competing in our girls' sports? No. How are we even having this conversation? Common sense is out the door. Critical race theory, are you kidding me? It is a narrative that is flawed from the start. Why are we even discussing it? Why? That red piece of paper back there, why are we having to qualify what's being talked about? No! Because there's an agenda out there. See, you can't put folks in slavery anymore. But apparently, you're guilty. If you're a white American, you're guilty. I understand the sins and the scars of our history. I get that. We've repented over and over again. I understand. But they can put you in mental slavery. That's right. So let's say I'm working in that bar out there in the lobby, and a black man and a white man walk in together, and I serve the black man first. Critical race theory says I'm a racist because I gave him privilege because I got guilt. Okay, well, I'm sorry, I'm going to serve the white guy first. Critical race theory again. You preferred the white guy, you're racist. It's a no-win situation. You can't win. These are the kind of things we want to teach our children. We can't even teach them civics. We can't even teach them history. Do you understand that in Minneapolis, in parts of Minnesota, they've already eradicated the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, World War I, and World War II from their history books?
What?
Look it up.
What?
Look it up. You think I'm playing with you? This is what we're up against. And people come at me because, look, I don't like the STAR test, right? I'm not a fan of teaching kids for a test. I think with educators, we need to teach kids, we need to turn our educators loose to teach, to test, to evaluate. But that doesn't mean I'm opposed to all standardized testing. I think that our kids should have to pass a citizenship test as a requirement for graduating high school. That's one of the things. But these are the kind of things, it's like, whoa, that's just American. People are like, oh my God, that's radical. You just took the Civil War and the Revolutionary War. No mention of George Washington. No mention of Thomas Jefferson. No mention of Abraham Lincoln. Look it up. This is where history is going in America. The revisionist, it's become a cult. It's become a false religion. Feelings have replaced facts. This is a bad thing. These are the things we're fighting for. The problem that I have is we've allowed government to get so big. And as conservatives, I don't think we're conserving anything anymore. We've become so dependent on the government ourselves that if it was to go away tomorrow, we wouldn't know what to do with ourselves. You are the Collin County conservative Republicans. Not just the Republicans. Y'all got an extra badge of honor. Conservative Republicans. I like that. Because I want government to get out of the way and let people govern themselves. There's no smaller government than the individual, than the home, than your community. I want you governing yourself. Sam Houston said that you should govern wisely and as seldom as possible. That's pretty smart. Government's got to get out of the way. What we saw last year was unacceptable. The overreach, it's got to end. Telling you how to live, telling you what to do. Well, what would you have done? An armchair quarterback, what would you have done? I wouldn't have treated you like a child. I would have said, you know what? We got something going on and we don't understand it right now. We're trying to figure that thing out, but I want to tell you what you need to do. Just like you did in Hurricane Harvey, I want you to come together as neighbors and look out for each other. I want you to care about your neighbor. One of the recommendations is maybe you should wear a mask. We don't know yet, but hey, give it a shot. And you know what? You got that choice. But there's no way I would have shut down businesses on the basis. There's no way that somebody. I was in Las Vegas earlier this week. I walked in the door there and it said, all vaccinated people, no mask required. Let me tell you, apparently there's a lot of vaccinated people in Las Vegas. Nobody was wearing a mask. But see, you were told to wear a mask. And I hope Anthony Fauci goes to jail. Biggest con man that's been foisted on Americans in history. I believe that with all my heart. Shut down our businesses, shut down our livelihoods. These are the things that can't happen. Chipping away at that liberty. Chipping away at that legacy. We got to get away from that, folks. I got a vision for Texas, I really do. And it's not that difficult. People come at me online and they're like, well, what's your plan? Well, mostly it's to get out of your way. Let you run your business, let you run your home, let government do its job, and let the people of Austin that are elected to go down there and represent you actually represent you. Because we have a guy sitting in the governor's office right now that, to my knowledge, has never stuck his neck out for any issue ever in his tenure as a governor. I don't think he has. Well, maybe the preschool thing a while back. But I don't know that he has. I want somebody that's going to believe in what you believe in. Embrace what you believe. And fight for what you believe in. It's amazing. I do believe in choice. I believe in I catch a lot of grief over, I say a lot of things. I have what's called foot and mouth disease. My foot fits right in my mouth sometimes. And I'll get going and I'll say things, and I don't always say what I mean, and I don't always say what I'm thinking in terms when I'm doing these videos and stuff. And I got a lot of people coming to me. They're like, what do you think about medical choice? So, I mean, I think you ought to be able to choose whatever you want to do. It's amazing. What do you think about vaccinations? If you want one, get one. I'm not so fond of them. But nobody should mandate you. There should be no vaccine passport. Not only should there be no contact tracing, but there should be nobody sitting up there going, you know what, you can't do business unless you've done it. You can't go to work unless you've gotten this. Absolutely not. That's not American. That's certainly not Texas. These are the things that we're fighting, folks. Because we're living in a different world. We're living in a different world. And we got barbarians at the gate. Maybe we need to meet force with force. Maybe we need to come at them with a little bit of barbaric activity ourselves and say, hell no. We're not going to be dictated to. As I said earlier, revolutions have been fought for less. And I do believe in a peaceful society. I do. God bless the peace that we have. But you know why we have peace? We have peace because we have order. So your car can run down the street and not shake all apart. It can operate in peace because everything's working in order. And we have order because we have the right government in place. An engineer put that car together so that everything would govern itself and have the right order and operate in peace. And you have the right government, you get the right order, and order brings peace. The reason we've had peace is because God graced us with this incredible idea, this republic idea, this liberty idea, entrusted us with something so fragile. And I want us to have the right government in place so that we can continue in peace. There's a reason why Jesus was described as the prince, that's a government title, of peace. Right government always leads to peace. And folks, I believe we've lived through some pretty tumultuous times in the last 14 months. It's time for those things to change, because if it's ever happened before, it can happen again. And these are things we need to consider. Now, I will be the one guy who says, I'm happy that there's other men and women who are considering getting into this governor race and primarying Greg Abbott in 2022. I'm happy they are. There's some good men that are out there so far. Some of them have demonstrated some great leadership qualities in the past, and I'm thankful for them. And I say the more the merrier. And a lot of people don't understand the process of the primary. They don't understand civics. They don't understand how this thing works. But I say the more the merrier. Because at the end of the day, I think it's time for us to get that legacy back in place. And I don't believe it's going to happen under the current administration. Now, that's my conviction. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And it's no joke, folks. Hey, what you got? Yeah, sure, let's do it. We'll do a brief one. I'll do that. How about that? You have a question? Yes.
You mentioned in a video not long ago about vaccination.
Yep.
People should stay home if they're not going to be vaccinated. So I wondered what changed your mind.
So the issue on that, and again, I qualified that in another video where I sat down, did a full interview with Jackie Schlegel, who is the executive director for Texans for Vaccine Choice.
Yes.
The question was about a comment about children staying home from public school if they had not been vaccinated. The point I was trying to make is, right now, the way things are established, whether you want to call them the laws or the rules or whatever, they're stacked against you if you are vaccine choice. Okay? And what I mean by that is, as long as we continue, the conversation that I was having there on a live feed video, by the way, with 1,500 people asking me questions all at once, just kind of hard to do. And I misspoke in some areas for sure, and wish I could go back and do it again. But I was talking about education in Texas. And I said, we're continuing to give our children's minds over to these brainwashing institutions that are being governed by the state. I was referring to public schools. Now, that is not a slight on educators in any way, shape, or form. I believe educators, as I stated earlier, have been handcuffed in many ways, and the ability to teach and educate has been taken away from them. And I said, you know, one of the options is we give the state so much authority, and then we complain about it when they utilize it against us. Somebody mentioned the vaccine thing. I said, well, right now, unless you get an exemption form filled out, unless you file an exemption, you got to get your child vaccinated. Or else you're going to suffer the consequences. I said, now you can keep them home. Just like, and I used the example, some people have kind of twisted this and used it against me. I said, just like if the school requires uniforms, you can't send your child to school naked, you got to send them home in the uniform. That's the rule. Right? And so people said, oh, you're saying that unvaccinated kids are like sending kids to school naked. Keep them home. Homeschool them. Wasn't the point. The point was we've got to change the authority we're giving to the state. If you want to raise your children a certain way, that is your right. That is your right. The state should not be able to dictate to you how you raise your child. Vaccinated, unvaccinated, doesn't matter. Vaccine choice. The same as with this COVID vaccine thing, which is not a vaccine, by the way. That's your choice. You want to get it? Get it. Not so much for me, but there's no shame for you. I get it. No judgment. So my thing there is, and this is where people tend to misunderstand something. I believe in freedom to the point where I don't believe in that exemption form. I don't think you should have to ask the state's permission for anything. So, regardless of how it was communicated in a way to illustrate and poorly done so, we qualified that in the episode with Jackie as best I possibly could. I told you I got foot and mouth disease. But it's like getting continuing education every 2 years to fill out a form just to know how to raise your kids. I don't believe in that. Now, will I defend that exemption? Absolutely. As long as it's necessary, I will defend it. But I want it gone. Okay. I want it gone. You shouldn't have to ask the state's permission on how to raise your children. Does that make sense? Yes. Yeah, and I went long on that one, but it's an important one, so yeah.
We're going to do a Q&A, but that broke the ice. So
yeah, real quick.
Okay, the reason why I love Trump is because of his business experience, his real-world experience. So I'm asking you, what is your real-world experience that gives you credibility to become governor?
Sure. Well, my history was with nonprofit organizations for out of school, out of college, running multi-million-dollar nonprofit organizations, which sounds funny to say. But they were big organizations. I spent a lot of time in third world countries doing humanitarian work. Humanitarian, you call them missions, whatever you want to call them. But a lot of organizations managed and led in that regard. Then went into managing sales forces for a Fortune 300 company based out of Chicago. And so did that, and then I've always had what I consider somewhat a gift of gab. I honestly got tired of having a boss, okay? I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I called my wife on the phone. I was in the parking lot at the gym, and I was not in the gym, I was at the gym, and there's a big difference. Yeah, and I told her, I said, I'm going to go make a living just being myself. And she said, what's the street value on your personality? I said, we're going to see. And I kind of stepped out into nothing. I began doing television and radio, and then of course the clouds parted, these things happened, and my career kind of took off as an entertainer in the world of entertainment. What we've done is we have built an international entertainment business. People laugh about Matthew McConaughey. They say, oh, he's Hollywood, he doesn't know politics. He knows politics better than anybody in Austin. If you've been successful in Hollywood, California, to the degree that he has, I promise you he's navigated dirty politics. The entertainment business is a multi-billion-dollar industry, I don't have to tell you. We've navigated that well. I am still in 30 to 40 states, including last year, every year with our business. We've built a multi-million-dollar apparel business, and we manage that, of course, out of DFW. We employ only not because we just happen to at the time. We employ all veterans, and we've been fortunate enough to be able to do that, and it's been a great thing. And so we have, not to bore you with it, but we have about 6 businesses, entrepreneurial, that are very successful. And we've had to navigate that. And It's been a lot of unique real-world experience, but I go back to the point where I say that Texas has been very good to me. So, you know, I have people who say, oh yeah, Donald Trump became a billionaire, his daddy gave him $1 million. If I gave most of you $1,000, you wouldn't know how to turn that into $1 million. He took $1 million, and whether he used that or not, or however he used it, squandered it, spent it, invested it, I don't know. But he became a billionaire. That's impressive. We stepped out with nothing and have created some incredible businesses across the board that support a lot of families in Texas. And so I'm pretty proud of that, quite honestly. And I'm thankful that God's given me the grace to do that. And it wouldn't have happened had I not been here in the state of Texas. So to that degree, I hope that answers your question. Yes, sir.
Chad, how are you doing?
Hey, buddy. Rocking and rolling.
Good to see you.
You too, man.
So, Sandy Hall, founded and president for American Militia. We do a lot of constitutional rights, but what we're most well known for, the television interviews and radio interviews, is our mission to rescue children from sex trafficking. I endorse you in Arlington. That lady that you just saw that stood up and asked a question over there, she's actually a rapid response team member of Patriots for America. She's the only female rapid response team member in the state of Texas. She's been undercover in brothels to help rescue children, as well as the lady sitting beside her who helped rescue a 22-year-old man who was autistic, who was being trafficked by his dad and 2 other men in Austin, Texas, in the middle of snow. We know that there's 4,000, and that's just what we know about, 4,000 children on the border right now. And this is a tracker's dream that we're sitting in right now, right? All created by the Biden administration. And all for what? Just votes, right? Yeah. Give them plane tickets and then whatever they want, wash their hands of it, and hopefully in 2024, they're going to vote, right? And we all know what about the Dominion, right? The Dominion, you can be getting it, but you know, they're creating a real pandemic. It's not COVID, it's child sex trafficking. Governor, what are you going to do to close our borders, combat child sex trafficking in this state, and help end this real pandemic, which is child sex trafficking?
There's a couple of things there. Thank you for the question. Let me allude back to something I said earlier. One thing, we got to shut that border down, and that's a complex deal. That's not just build a wall. There's a lot more than that. You know that. We all know that. We've got to make these cartels, which ultimately are who's trafficking this and making this happen and funding this. They've got to become enemies. They have got to be international terrorists. There's no other way, because then we can show force against them. That's a complex deal as well, but that's got to be shut down. We're seeing now more than ever children being used. You know how we just saw Israel and Gaza, and they were using children as human shields. We're seeing traffickers at the southern border, in essence, using children the same way. 5-year-old was on the news, last night, being dropped off there at the border in the middle of the night. They're doing that. Why? Because they know we're not going to show force against children. Therefore, we have got to cut the head off of the snake where it exists. One of the ways we do that, and I think that Trump had a smart idea in that, and it was never carried out the way it should have been fully. But we've got to analyze what's going on at the source. We're sending Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, we're sending them tens of billions of dollars every year, the federal government is. Why? To fund corrupt governments. Those corrupt governments are what those people are leaving. These are democracies, by the way. These are democracies, but they're corrupt. And we're funding that. We're continuing to fund that. We've got to press Washington, D.C. to stop that. They got to cut that off. They've got to monitor that. If they're going to send money down there, they got to hold these governments accountable, because there's a reason those people are leaving. There's a reason. Some of the most industrious, most visionary, most ambitious people on the planet. In fact, there's some of them coming to the border. If I could snap my fingers and change the progressive left out for some of those, I'd do it in a heartbeat, right?
Why aren't we going after the dirty old men who like little children?
Well, that's another thing right there. We've got to stop. I'll put it this way. I tell you what I'm going to do. In a little while, I'm going to go hang out at that bar out there, and I'll tell you a damn thing you want to know. But I will tell you this. There are organizations that are under our nose and that we know exist, that are in this country, that are guilty of sin for that thing right there. And whether it is the foster care system, people that are involved in that, I have no doubt there are good people in the CPS program, but there's corruption there. And these are the things that are helping this happen, because this is big business. And some of the biggest of it is happening right here in our state.
Yes, it is.
So it's a multifaceted thing. There's so many issues that are there. But at what point in time are we going to step up? I mean, we won't even stop our children from being mutilated and castrated and having sex change. We're not even fighting for that, much less Guatemalan children that are being dropped at the border. I mean, at what point in time do we stand up and say enough is enough? These are the things we got to fight for. If you don't fight for the most innocent among us, then we are damned. I'm telling you, we are a cursed people. And I say that as well for the unborn.
Yes.
Yeah. At what point in time do we show mercy and we fight for those who do not have a voice? Our children matter. I was on Chris Salcedo's show this morning, and I told him, he said, what's the biggest 3 issues you'd call a special counsel over? I said, children, children, and children.
Yes.
We are sacrificing a generation.
Yes.
And I believe the light that shines the brightest at home also shines the farthest away. So to that degree, we can change what's going on down there at the border.
Chad, I have a
But this is a battle.
We have a question right here.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm kind of new to you and
Hey, look, I'm 48, still trying to figure out who I am.
and also just Texas, returning to Texas. I don't represent any minority group, or I don't like to play identity politics, but I'm just curious because I do know a lot of minorities, and I see a lack of minority representation at certain events. And like I said, I am in no way playing identity politics, but I haven't heard a lot from you, so I just wanted to know, how do you plan to address, I mean, we have a lot of different cultures.
Sure.
How do you plan to address them and get them on your team?
Well, and I get that. I appreciate that. And in some cases, depending on where we are, we do that. Our goal is to go in a lot of places where most candidates don't go. I've been focusing on small towns, not the big cities per se. I have communicated quite a bit with the urban community, as well as with the Rio Grande Valley, and planning yet another trip to back down there again. There are a lot of folks that are starving for conservative values. People see, I'll just say this as an addendum, people see what's happening at the border. They're seeing this immigration issue. It is a problem. The left is doing a better job than we are at communicating, and I'll even say indoctrinating people. The difference is conservatism is what truly sets people free, because that's what empowers people. Democratic socialism does not help minorities. Marxism, such as BLM, does not empower minorities. It's up to us to be bold. Hey, look, you're already a racist, by the way. You've already been called that. Don't worry about it anymore. Speak the message, because the message that sets you free is not, oh, I'm gonna be a black conservative or a Latino conservative or a white conservative or an Asian conservative. No, I'm just going to be a conservative. And I'm going to be a Texas conservative. And to me, that's what matters. Because I got brothers and sisters of all different shades of melanin, and I'll tell you what, we can fellowship. You were going to ask something. You were going to, and then we got to get out of here.
I just want to know, this really doesn't have anything to do with what you can do in Texas, but why is Mexico allowing all these caravans to come through?
They don't like us. Why are they letting them come to America?
Yeah.
To weaken us. They don't like us. They don't want them there. But if you think Mexico likes you, they don't. They don't. And so to the degree that they can weaken America, they want that. There is a big ploy out there, not the least of which is in Washington, D.C. Barack Obama just said yesterday that Joe Biden is finishing what his administration started. What his administration started was to fundamentally change America. You remember that?
Yeah, that was his word.
And that's what's happening right now.
One more question. Well, two more. I'm going to ask the last.
That's scary. Come on, Zach.
This is Terry Wade, former president of CCCR.
Hey, Terry.
I don't know that this is necessarily a question, but I really get aggravated by people of color or people anywhere that ask, what are you going to do? And my question is, what are you?
You're not wrong. Yeah.
So if this is what color you are, I'm tired of talking about Hispanic or whatever.
Right.
It's upon, if you're a Republican, if you're a conservative, it's not on one person, it's on everyone. So,
Yeah. And the only thing I know to do is to make sure that those systems for success stay in place, whether that's capitalism, liberty, freedom. You're not wrong on that. And I'll tell you another thing. One of the best things we can do is I go back, we got to teach history.
yeah.
We got to teach history. Because blacks in this country are blessed. They've been lied to in many, many ways. A lot of minorities have been lied to. This is a land of opportunity, and the American dream isn't dead.
The last question of the night is, what's your stance on Texas?
So, somebody asked me, what's the stance on Texas? You remember a little while ago when I said, let people vote on it? Someone asked me about 8 months ago at dinner, they said, we got one question for you. They said, if the House passed a bill that gave the people of Texas the right to vote, to be their own nation again, would you veto it or ratify it? I said, I'd let the people vote. Now, I don't want us to secede from the United States, but I want us to be able to legislate ourselves as though we can at any time. And God forbid that day comes, but it should be our right. And that's where I stand on that. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding when it comes to Texas. But I'll tell you, independence sure does feel good, don't it? It does. God bless you guys. God bless Texas. Zach? Thank you. God bless you guys.
And all you men and women that are here tonight, thank you very much. This is it for the summer. We have an event next week with President Trump's favorite author, Nick Adams. We're going to do combined forces with Star Patriots over in Frisco. Patrick Wamhoff's group. That's at 7 o'clock at the Knack Theater off of Main Street.
Good to see you, man.
At 7 o'clock. Let's give it up for Chad again. Thank you all very much. Y'all have a good night and a great summer.